everyone. This is OG Star Wars coming to you with another lecture. Excuse me, another video. And I want to go over how Ahsoka's Following Guise with other Star Wars shows on Disney Plus with the critique and some sort of backlash, whether it's the script, the pacing, the content, what have you. And this article was shared to me and I wanted to share it with you. So let's go ahead and check this out. So, dear God, and this is by The Guardian, dear God, George Lucas, or dear George Lucas, if I can read, why the Star Wars universe is going from bad to worse. So, what do you think? Do you think the Star Wars universe is going from bad to worse? What is your opinion on this? Many people, every single show that comes out, it's being saved. But then also, we hear at the same pace from the same people or group of people or what have you, that they're saying that Star Wars doesn't need to be fixed. So what is it? Is it being saved? Is it doesn't need to be saved and it's just excellent anyways? What is going on here with the fact that people can't make up their decision every single show that Star Wars is perfect or Star Wars is being saved? That's the question here. So we have this article here that we're going to touch basis on here. So let's get into this. So this is by Stuart Heritage here. And so this kind of cracked me up here. The latest Star Wars spinoff, Ahsoka, is painfully glacial TV about a giant Oompa Loompa. Where did I hear that before? Oh yeah, Tusken Bob, who said, Ahsoka to him, and I have to laugh at this because now I can't take this out of my head, that she is a cross between a Twi'lek and an Oompa Loompa breeding, and she is the result of that. So in a novelty hat, so Oompa Loompa in a novelty hat, this show needs to be banished to a galaxy far, far away. So imagine that. Needs to be banished to a galaxy far, far away.
I've got a perfect puzzle for you. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-dee. If you are wise, you'll listen to me.
So let's get into this article right here. It must be very complicated being George Lucas. On one hand, you get to wake up inside a vast Scrooge McDuck money vault every morning. On the other, you have to live with the absolute mess Disney has made of your life's work. To be George Lucas must be to know that you are indirectly responsible for allowing something so soggy and aimless as Ahsoka to seep into the world. Okay, so there we go. So this is a lot in just this paragraph here because it goes into George Lucas. He sold the company, he donated money, he has, he's living on the cushion of the franchise that he built, right? So he's living on all his life's work here. He handed over to Disney Star Wars in hopes that it's being continued for fans to enjoy for generations to come, right? And then you see how his ideals of a sequel trilogy that they give him, that they wanted his idea of what would be continued, he offered that to him. They said they didn't want to use it. Bob Iger even states that in his biography, right? So they dismissed that. So imagine that. And then you hear him in the Harlem interview that, he identifies what's his Star Wars that he handed over to Disney, the 6 films. And then he says everything else he doesn't recognize, it's not his. So that's very telling. It sounds like he's very pointed at, the direction Disney has taken Star Wars. And fans are beginning to see that as well. Ahsoka has now reached its halfway point with 4 of its 8 episodes aired, and it's fair to say that literally nothing has happened. From what I'm hearing, like Duff and Chase that a game would do, like a RPG or a game would do, that you would get a map, you would follow and break these levels here to find how to get there, how close you get, blah, blah, blah. We know what's going to happen because the characters won't stop talking about it. They're going to meet a new baddie who has been banished to a different galaxy and represents an enormous existential threat. But the show is plotting towards it so glacially that it feels as if we may never actually get there. It's almost as if Star Wars realized that it has spread itself too thin and is dueling out plot one measly quarter portion at a time. The worst thing is that as tortuously slow as Ahsoka is, and what other show said was slow was Andor as well. It still isn't bad by Star Wars standard. It isn't bad on the scale of the pointless Obi-Wan Kenobi series or that of J.J. Abrams' film. Which one, Force Awakens or The Rise of Palpatine? That felt like the doomed result of a stoned 3M chat GPT prompt. Ooh, okay. At its worst, Star Wars is unfathomably bad. Ahsoka doesn't operate at that level, at least. Much of it is fine. If nothing else, it's refreshing to see Rosario Dawson playing something other than a middle-aged director's idea of a love interest. Ooh, okay, that's okay. Even if that something is essentially a giant Oompa Loompa in a novelty hat. So there we go again. The reference of an Oompa Loompa in a novelty hat. If anything, don't take offense of that because it's funny. Sometimes you got to make joke at crazy shit, you know? The bigger problem, and it's pretty big one, is this. Who cares? Although the character was created for the 2008 animated Clone Wars film, this version of Ahsoka is the one who sporadically appeared in The Mandalorian. So again, the 2008 Clone Wars film was horrible in itself. I think after that, she should have been killed off and then no more of her because that was so terrible in itself. The Clone Wars, the only thing that I enjoyed was just some standalone episodes that dealt with the clones themselves, which makes the show a spin-off of a spin-off stuffed into a crumb of Star Wars chronologically that nobody thought was important until now. In the past, shows have managed to distract, excuse me, us from their own useless by lobbing us a cameo. So here we go. The cameos here. So this is something that has been apparent. Now, when you go back to the EU, you could say there was cameos, but what makes a cameo essential to the story is the substance that they provide. Like I shared on Calf Chats about Anakin visiting Leia, her dealing with her heritage, her lineage, her bloodline, basically. So let's go on with this. Or at least a DH digital fright mask of a character from when Star Wars was good. But Ahsoka can't even manage that. The big reveal from the newest episode are, here's a spoiler warning. So basically, those who don't know, I don't give a shit. So, but this is from the actual writer of this article, is that Anakin Skywalker is floating about as a ghost, not Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. From the bad prequels, it isn't exactly enough to sustain. So they think the prequels is bad. I don't. Enough to sustain an entire season of television. Correct. And my thing is, the World Between Worlds is a big mistake. George never cared for any sort of time travel. This basically is a time travel because you can cross into different timelines within the Star Wars universe, affecting it. And with the Force, it doesn't go with that because the Force basically, doesn't exist for time travel. Like when Yoda talks about visions of the future and stuff, you cannot go and try to change anything. The Force should course correct. And if that's the case here, then Ahsoka wouldn't be alive. So this is a big conflict that I've been seeing. Here we go. Also, the clutch of modern Star Wars shows have a habit of jumping around in time. So they're talking about skipping a little bit in the timeline, but when you look at the timeline for these shows, they're all cluttered in like a 9 ABY type time frame. So they're not jumping around in time, like scattered like throughout time. They are within the same time frame. So it's like hard to decide where it fits because it's getting very crowded where they're at. So Ahsoka is set at some point in the 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Now you'll remember that the point of this series is that Ahsoka must face an extremely bad baddie who incidentally is called Thrawn. And wouldn't you believe too if you be evil too if your name was abbreviation of Thawed Prawn? I thought that was funny. I didn't realize that, you can kind of come up with that. Who's poses a deadly threat to the entire galaxy. However, if you've seen The Force Awakens, you'll know that the galaxy is basically fine. We know Ahsoka wins. So what is the point? So this is a huge point. However, if you go look back in the EU, you have certain time frames of conflicts of war. But what did the EU good is that the writers who worked alongside the company and under George's vision, I guess you can say, that they had to make sure that they that they their continuity was kept, and that we got to see these events unfold. So they just didn't skip. They didn't have anything in the future written just yet to know what was going to happen after the Yuuzhan Vong War and stuff like that. With this, so that no matter what, something's gonna have to give. Like the galaxy should have been peace in a sense during The Force Awakens, because that's what is alluded. We'll see what happens with that, if Ahsoka is still going to introduce any, ST or Disney trilogy characters. And they have already. So one of the senator's son is from the Resistant cartoon, which is basically an ST kind of our Disney trilogy, era type show. So we'll see what happens with this. More pressingly, it's just exhausting to sit through yet another thin slice of Star Wars. Disney Plus has stuffed its gullet with so many Star Wars spin-offs that it's hard not to feel bored by the whole operation. The iconography is the same. The sets are the same. All the characters sigh all their stilted expositionary dialogue in the same bored sounding way. So basically, yes, their dialogue, I got to see some of the clips there. Their dialogue, it's like they're very monotone, kind of like Bueller. So there's no expression. I think the only biggest expression is Sabine, actually, when Ahsoka falls over. But that's it. That's it. And then that's it. So that's all I have to say. Nobody laughs. Nobody gets excited. It's like listening to a class of short-sighted 11-year-olds reading Shakespeare from a set of distant cue cards. There's so much baggage to deal with that the story in these shows is an afterthought, which is fortunate for Ahsoka, given that it doesn't have one. Whoa. But let's think positive. Okay, so let's get the positive, because everybody's like, well, I hate it that you always critique and you always have something negative to say. You hate Star Wars. Why don't you just shut up and like it? So, okay. So you guys know my channel's mainly George Lucas era. I compare and contrast between the lores. And yes, I do at times speak out and report what's going on with Disney Star Wars, because that's my right. And how I decide to critique it, that's my right. If you don't agree with it, go ahead and, walk yourself out the door. That's okay. I don't mind. Ahsoka may pick up. The character of Sabine Wren is a decent new addition. And I've heard many people say to the opposite, but here we go. Not least because she talks and behaves like someone who hasn't watched Star Wars and therefore isn't particularly reverent about it. Don't worry if you also like her, though, because at this rate, she'll have her own spin-off show in a couple of months, because God knows how much Disney likes grinding good ideas into the dirt. So that's your positive critique right there. In a fair and logical world, Star Wars would recover from the disappointment of Ahsoka by going fallow for a significant amount of time. So basically pausing for amount of time. And I think I do agree here, because yes, I don't think that they are going to ignore, retcon, or erase the Disney trilogy. I'm just applying some logic here with what I have witnessed and researched, with seeing hints of, upcoming events that lead to the Disney trilogy. Do I want it gone? I want all of this gone. I want to continue to have what I loved. Like the fact that they did toss the EU was a warning sign that they weren't going to honor a lot of fans and honor the direction that George and his company built before. So are they going to honor? Are they going to do anything to destroy their own content? No, they're not. They're going to add on to it. In fact, they are basically a comic that I reviewed or talked about on Cap Chat on a Thursday, basically shares that, Luke Skywalker, the Anakin Skywalker's saber doesn't really belong to him. It belongs to Rey. So that's proof that they are not going to ignore, retcon, or erase the Disney trilogy when they keep going down that track, even with their other media of content that they say they're linking to all continuity in the canon, in their lore. Mind you, you guys already know how I feel about that. This is not true canon. True canon is what George created before with his company. Take a decade off, make people start to miss it again. I agree. That was the beauty of George Lucas's time, right? But even when you have that big time frame of no films coming out, you still had the EU material coming out, and that kept Star Wars afloat. In fact, the EU, with the games, novels, comics, all of that, kept Lucasfilm afloat. And it was a beautiful time because everybody got excited to see what was happening next in that part of Star Wars media. So, but this isn't the way the world works anymore. Instead, we're doomed to be force fed this stuff in thinner and thinner dilutions without a break for years and years until we are utterly sick of it. Lucky us. Now, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that Star Wars needs to take a break to let it reset? Do you think it needs to eventually be sold off from Disney? Do you think even if if it's going to change, even when Kathleen Kennedy is gone, whether she leaves on her own or they fire her, whatever the next rumor is about her, whatever circumstance is about her at the current moment, I don't think it's going to change. I think that they will hire someone that fits their ideology. And that is exactly what Filoni has shared and shares with Disney, the same ideology. And that is even apparent in that video of him at the women's conference. So don't be fooled that Filoni's going to save Star Wars. He is following in the same line as his boss. Now, you could say, oh, well, he needs to, be careful because he needs to keep his job. He's just saying that to appease them. Well, if that's the case, he seemed pretty organic speaking in that interview to the women at the women conference. And he seemed very organic when they talked about his ideas of Luke Skywalker and how he should be cut in the Disney trilogy. So make it for what you will. Star Wars definitely does need a pause. Ahsoka basically is, from what I viewed and seen and researched, is not that interesting. I think they're going to bastardize Anakin Skywalker coming forward with what they're putting him through right now in this world between worlds. I don't think he belongs in any type of time travel situation to bring him in any type of timeline as well. And, it doesn't have anything to do with balance with the Force or anything like that. In fact, George Lucas has said that balance within the Force is basically the light side. The dark side is imbalance. So if you want to get into that a little more, research that as well. I'll share links below so you can have quick clicks to find out that information that I'm presenting to you. So what do you think? Again, let me know below. And if you are the one that is reviewing the Ahsoka Show, let me know what you think. Let's create a conversation out of this. And with that being said, you guys have a good day and may the Force be with you.
Another happy landing.